I'm Jen Smith. I'm a junior in Animal Sciences and Farm Management.
Hi, I'm Taylor Warner. I'm majoring in elementary education and I'm a senior.
Our topic is race, and so we're looking at breakdown of racial demographics in our population and seeing what our community is doing to help break this.
The movie that we chose was Hidden Figures, and the reason why we chose this movie was because it relates to our CIP topic of race. The movie demonstrates minorities and some of the challenges and struggles that they face in the workplace.
For our immersion, we visited Food Finders, which is a local food bank, and we volunteered our time to help fight food insecurity. We did this relate this back to race because we had a belief that minorities face greater food insecurity in our community because that's what we got from national averages. And so we'll talk about this later and if it was proven right or wrong. And so we went to the food bank and we toured the facilities and looked at the process from the start to the end of when people walk through the door to when they leave. And we learned that some of the programs they provide besides just handing out food. So they help with meal preparation, they give classes on budgeting to help finances, shopping smartly, basic cooking skills in case people lack them, nutrition education, healthcare and navigation through the system because it can be really challenging, smoking to help quit smoking.
We also volunteered our time learning about the clients and some of their stories that they came with, and just about how they came to seek assistance at the food bank. The reasons varied, cost of medication, cost of housing, rent, job loss, caring for elderly, caring for their family or grandchildren, lack of access to a grocery store, so food deserts, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in our presentation, single parents, just struggling with income, cost of daycare, bills, and cost of other expenses that are rising.
As Taylor mentioned with the client stories, we learned various reasons why they're seeking help. We learned about what's important to them, such as caring for their family, putting others' needs before their own, and trying to meet their finances. So something we learned is that they're just like you and I. They have other everyday people who value and believe in the same things that we do, such as family, education, togetherness, friends, love, and laughter.
So in talking about communication between these clients and ourselves, one thing to note was body language. Some of these clients made eye contact with us while speaking. Some were in a good mood or a bad mood, obviously just depending on their day. And, we all have days like that as well. And this reflected the tone in their voice. And for behavior, the clients would line up half hour, an hour early before the pantry would open. And what would happen is sometimes they would get in arguments, and this is because they have this false belief that if you're first in line, you are more likely to get more of the better product that is available at the food shelter. And this is a misconception. This is not true. This is something that stems from scarcity. And so what they actually did to implement was they tried to do a lottery system to where if you are the first person in line, that doesn't necessarily mean that you will be the first in the food bank to receive your food. That could mean that you're, the 25th person or the third person in line. So as far as interaction with the clients, most of the clients were very appreciative and they were glad to be at the food pantry to receive the services that they were getting that day.
More about Food Finders are located in Lafayette, and in 2018 they distributed 7.5 million meals to the community. They offered 180 educational classes and 499 people were given assistance to help their situation.
Not only does Food Finders fulfill that immediate need of getting food, it also aims to fulfill some long-term goals that will help you be more successful in life, whether that is if you need help with education or lots of other reasons that we listed previous. They have a commitment to equality, dignity, empowerment, collaboration, stewardship, and they believe in diversity, and they do not turn away anyone for any reason, and when you go to the food bank, they don't even ask for your ID.
So here's a picture of their educational classroom that we took while we were touring their facilities, and this is where they host all their classes.
So these two pictures here are located in the basement of the food pantry that we toured. The picture on the left is food that comes off of trucks that come from farms or big mass deliveries from semis. And the picture on your right is a picture of the sorting room. So as you can see in the cardboard containers, there's a mixture of all different kinds of foods. And the baskets up against the wall is where they will sort the food into certain categories of a likeness.
You may be wondering where this food comes from, so were we. So we were surprised to learn that 38% of their food comes from retail stores, that it's their last ditch effort to get rid of food to make some money off it, so they sell it really cheaply. And then 23% comes from them actually purchasing from like large distribution centers, so they can get food very cheaply. And we were definitely surprised that only 2% of their food comes from actual food drives.
So earlier we talked about the various reasons why these clients come to the food bank. And one important one to note is that 69% of households actually choose between food and utilities. So as you can imagine, this is a really hard thing to choose from. So this is a map provided by the USDA, and this map shows areas of people who have low income and low access to food. So Food Finders not only serves West Lafayette and Lafayette, they also serve the surrounding 16 counties. And so 3.3 million pounds of food were served to 38,905 households by mobile pantries.
So this data is showing the need for food banks in our area. So the top one is all 16 counties that Food Finder serves, and they cover 13.3% of people with food insecurity, where the bottom is just Tippecanoe County, and they face 15.8% of food insecurity. So as promised at the beginning of our video, one of the misconceptions we found was that minorities do not face as great as food insecurity as we thought because of previous research into the national averages. So on the left is our national averages, and you can see minorities experience a lot more food insecurity than white Americans, where in the right with West Lafayette data that Food Finders has, whites experience way more food insecurity here than in the United States.
But it was like,
so one of the reasons we think the Hispanic data is so low here is because Hispanics are afraid of being deported if they're illegal. And so one thing Food Finders does, they don't ID anyone, is spreading that word though that Hispanics will not be deported if they come visit a food bank.
so for cultural differences, for verbal, tone of voice obviously depended on the mood that they were in, and that really reflected what we saw. Nonverbal, so eye contact, body language, posture, we kind of talked about a little bit about earlier. So there were several assumptions that we evaluated after this project. One of those was that we thought that they would take as much food as they can, kind of like going in there and trying to get as much as they can and stock up. However, the director, Adam, told us that they typically only take what they need. They don't overtake more than they need to. Another assumption was that we thought that people who seek help from food shelters, maybe they have problems with financials, they have poor planning skills. However, that is not true, and as we talked about earlier, there are a lot of reasons why they do come to the food bank.
So as mentioned earlier, we assumed that the majority of people who visited food banks made up a minority of the population. However, this isn't true because 66% of people who visit the food bank are whites. And then we thought that the food at the pantry came from donations from the public, but this also isn't true because they come from things like farms, last cause food, like last case scenario food that can't be sold no longer in grocery stores. Food drives make up a small percent, but they still do provide some food. Purchase products at discount prices from big corporations. Funds from Feeding America buy some food, and USDA commodities.
So when addressing our perspectives, our own perspective changed to understand that people of all kinds, no matter race, can experience food insecurity. And as a worldview perspective, I think that TV commercials can tend to show food insecurity in places such as Africa, and I think it really neglects to get that message out that here in the United States, we are experiencing food insecurity. It is a worldwide misconception, and demonstrate empathy for culture, having this understanding that there are many circumstances that can put one in a position where you need food, and just having empathy and caring for anybody that is in need of that situation, regardless of the reason.
Helping others that are facing different situations than I am and listening to them opened my eyes about the struggles that they face on a daily basis. We were glad that we could be there and hearing their stories, and we showed them compassion, and it was really beneficial for both us and for them.
All those things that we did may seem small or may not be bigger to the whole contribution. We really did experience positive feelings that we could contribute to society, and that we were able to help a small part in combating food insecurity.
Hi, my name is Kelly Martin, and I am a senior in biological engineering. So this semester I am actually not in West Lafayette at Purdue's main campus, but am studying abroad in Christchurch, New Zealand. And so because of that, I actually wasn't able to work with the main team back at Food Finders in West Lafayette, but I did have the opportunity to do kind of a similar project here in Christchurch at a food bank called City Mission. And so going into this project, I honestly thought that City Mission was just a food bank, but very quickly found out that they actually have a whole number of different things that the organization is involved with. So they have a men and women's shelter that are two separate places that just allow men or women to go to have a place to spend the night for a couple of nights if that's something that they really need for a while. They have a service set up to help people recover from addictions for both alcohol and drugs to just get past that. They have a service set up to help people learn about budgeting and what it means to manage money wisely, and also have something set up to help kids get the supplies that they need to go to school. So here in New Zealand, all children from primary school up to high school are all required to have a uniform, and so that's something that's really difficult for a lot of kids to get, and that really means that a lot of children in poverty are really having trouble getting into school and being prepared. And so this organization also helps with that, which is really awesome. And then they also have a furniture collection and redistribution program set up. So people, if you have an extra couch lying around, you can give it to someone who might not have a couch at all, rather than just throwing it out. And also have a thing set up to do holiday meals. But the one thing that I learned of that I thought was just really cool was that they also have 6 different thrift shops, as they're called back in the States, set up kind of like a Goodwill, where people can just come in and donate things to the shop, and then you can come and purchase the things, and all the proceeds go to support all of these other things that the organization is involved with. And so all of these different things that City Mission is involved with come back to their 2 main values. So the whole organization is a Christian group, and so the first thing that they consider as part of their mission statement is to talk to people about their faith and talk to people about the hope in Jesus. And then the second part is to uphold the Treaty of Waitangi, which is the treaty that was made in between British officials and between the chiefs of the Maori tribe, which are the indigenous people here in New Zealand. And so I feel like that already gets at a little bit of how City Mission is looking to address racial things and making sure that the indigenous people aren't undervalued in any way, and that they're cared for, and specifically making sure that that treaty is upheld and that those people are treated with the respect that they ultimately deserve. And yeah, so it's really cool to be able to see that in play within Christchurch. And so from my experience while I was there, I unfortunately was not able to directly interact with the different people that were coming to the food bank for food because of the way that they had it set up. The volunteers that day were unfortunately only able to work on sorting food in the back, which was still honestly a really valuable experience, because through that I was able to talk to the other volunteers who had been around for a longer time, and just talk to them about their experiences interacting with some of the people that do come to the food bank, and talking to them a little bit about the demographics of the people there and just what they had seen over their time here. And honestly had the opportunity to talk to one man in particular, who was now volunteering at the food bank, but had previously, a couple years back, had times where he had to actually come to the bank for food. And so he was able to talk to me a little bit about his experience through that. And just like a lot of the emotional things that are tied into that if someone hasn't experienced that themselves, they might not even know about. Just talking about how hard it was to just admit that he needed help when a lot of other people didn't need help. It made him feel like kind of small. And so it was interesting to just hear that other perspective, because it totally makes sense to me after talking to him about that would be a thing, but it's not something that would have occurred to me before. And so I feel like I learned a lot through that. But I was also able to talk to him a lot about the demographics of the people that do come to the food bank on a regular basis. And although there's not really any good way to quantify it, he did mention that the number of the Maori people that are coming to this food bank is slightly more than the population in Christchurch, for a couple of different reasons, which it's hard to tell exactly why that would be happening, but one possible reason is just that the overall mission of City Mission is to ensure that the Maori people in particular are being taken care of, and so it makes sense that would naturally follow. And then, in addition, he talked a little bit about the struggles that he had in his own family, and the struggles that some of his other friends had, just in facing different negative things that people see when they look at the Indigenous people, and things that they would have to battle against, very similarly to what we've been learning in the class, just how the little biases were changing the way that people would treat them, and just making all the things in life that seem simple at first just a little bit more difficult. And so that's just led a large percentage of the people to come to the food bank are indeed Maori. And so it was really hard to hear about, and really difficult to see that is just such a real thing that these people are dealing with on a daily basis. But I felt like for me it was just a really, really good change of perspective, and really helped me out in a lot of ways. And yeah, overall I had just a really great experience. I had a chance to meet so many new people and hear so many new stories of things that I've personally never experienced, but it's just really good to talk about, I think. But I think that my favorite part was not necessarily, like, I really appreciated being able to do my small part to make a difference in the city. But I think that the thing that I appreciated the most was just knowing that this small role that I was playing is part of such a bigger picture. Even within City Mission, there are so many different things that they're involved with, and this is only in Christchurch, and I know that City Mission is just as active in Wellington and just as active in Auckland, and so it was really cool to know that my working in the back and sorting out food for the food bank was playing one small piece in a really big puzzle, and it just made me really happy to know that efforts are being made to fight against a lot of these negative biases that so many people are facing that we might not even see, but that there is something being done about that. And so it made me really, really good to know that my small piece was part of a bigger picture, and that bigger picture is trying to move our town to a more equal place, like a place that is able to more readily accept everyone that comes through, which was just really good to see.